Okay, we're gonna open the meeting at 6:30 on May 15th, 2017. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we don't have any resident comments submitted for this meeting. So Lisa, can you read the warrants, please?
Okay, so motion to approve the payroll warrant number 1745 in the amount of 154,425.46.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Approved?
Motion to approve deduction warrant number 17-43A in the amount of $30,705.66.
You get a second?
Seconded.
Second by Bill. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous?
And a motion to approve bill warrant number 17-45 in the amount of $742,885.27.
You get a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ed. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous? Thank you. Next, we have appointments. Appointment of Patrick Jensen to Fairview Circle to the position of temporary seasonal cemetery groundskeeper. The appointment is effective May 16th, 2017, at an hourly rate of $11 an hour and a maximum of 25 hours per week for a maximum of 25 weeks. Is Patrick here? No? Any background on Patrick, or?
His resume is attached, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Deborah Stewart, 9 Rollins Street, Chairman of the Cemetery Commission. We got 2 resumes in. Right now, he was the most qualified to start immediately. So hopefully, once he is appointed this evening, he will be able to start tomorrow. We are looking to get the cemetery in check before Memorial Day. So the quicker we can get him approved and in, the happier we will be. We need to get some work done, so, but very eager to work, very gung-ho, so we were very proud to see that.
Okay.
So,
Anybody have any questions?
No, I'll make a motion that we appoint Patrick Jensen to Fairview Circle or temporary seasonal cemetery worker, effective May 16th, 2017.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Deb,
Yes.
roughly how old is he?
I believe he's 20,
I think he's early 20s.
Okay.
yeah, early
Yeah,
20s.
I looked at his resume, he has quite a bit of experience.
He does have some landscape experience, which we definitely need, and
Right.
I think he'll be a really good fit, especially with our superintendent. I think they'll work very well together, so.
And are you looking for 2 or just 1?
Right now, we're looking to just get one in right now, just to get the ball rolling and get, a few different things done. And we do have a couple other options on the table that we are going to be meeting and discussing that, so I'm sure we'll have another recommendation coming forward quite soon.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Just a
Yep.
question. I was always led to believe that age wasn't supposed to be asked in an application process. And so
Well, I think one definite concern of the cemetery commission, and I'm not speaking to about the other 2 members because they're not here, but I know for myself that I would personally rather have somebody over the age of 18 and, gung-ho. So I don't think really age is a factor, but it's just definitely somebody over the age of 18.
yeah, but I don't think that, yeah, you can be set out in the parameters, minimum age, but I don't think that that's something that can be, that can be asked in a discussion like this.
The only reason I was asking it was for the simple fact that you just stated that he wasn't 16 years old, and I know he's gonna be running equipment up there and what
Right.
have you, so I wanted to make sure that he had a driver's license and what have you.
Exactly.
That was the
We
only reason I was
wouldn't want
asking.
somebody who's just, on summer break from high school or,
Right.
under the age of 18. We would want somebody who has a driver's license, is able to get to work, who's able
Right.
to, do what he has to do.
And I go on record to say that I asked around that age, I didn't ask for a specific.
It's on his resume anyways, the
Yeah,
year he
it's on his
graduated from
resume.
high school,
That's definitely on there.
so.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Lisa, you're all set? So we got a second, so take a vote. All those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
Sure thing. All right, so we are not talking about the town clerk at this meeting. That got pushed off to the next meeting. So we can go to votes of the board, since we're ahead of schedule. We have the minutes from April 18th, 2017, the minutes from April 24th, 2017, the special meeting. Approval of the fire department's request dated May 10th, 2017, to install heart-safe logo signs around town and place flyers and business cards advertising Groveland as a heart-safe community and their sponsored CPR classes. Accept the resignation of Elizabeth Jones, library page, effective May 6th, 2017. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from April 18th, 2017?
Now, those look to be in order. I'll make a motion that we approve those.
I get a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Does anyone know what happened to the library page?
No, we haven't got to that yet. We're gonna do it, we can vote them separately. We'll go all the way down.
Okay, all right.
So any discussion on April 18th? All those in favor?
Yes.
I'm gonna abstain.
Minutes from April 24th, 2017, special meeting. I get a motion to accept.
Make a motion to accept.
I get a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
One abstain. The approval of fire department's request for heart safe logo. I get a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the fire department's request regarding the Heart Safe logo signs, flyers, business cards.
I get a second.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Yep, Bill?
They used to give out those little stickers they used to put in the windows of the children's
kids, yeah.
rooms.
Mhm.
Do they still have those, and can we maybe get a program started to let everybody know that, you know, where to get them and where to install them, and that if they have little children, it's important to get those in their windows, so when the firemen, God forbid, if anything happens, they're the first, you know, windows to go through.
Yeah, I don't
Get
know
the
what
kids
happened. I mean, I had one in my window when I was a kid.
I think that program went out along with the invalid stickers that they used to put in for people that were disabled, because it gave somebody, they see those children's stickers on a window or invalid stickers, it gave people an easy target to break into, because they knew it might be an elderly person with an invalid sticker, or the children. So it's something that I haven't seen for years, and that was one of the reasons that they did away with them.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we can ask the fire chief. I have no idea what happened with that.
Yeah, that'd be a shame. All right, well,
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous. And then, can I get a motion to accept the resignation of Elizabeth Jones?
I make a motion to accept the resignation of Elizabeth Jones.
Get a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No, I was just wondering what happened. I know that we had just,
She got a
Well-
job at the Boxford.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
accepted a position in Boxford that had a few more hours a week. She was only doing 4 hours a week here on Saturdays.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Yes.
Unanimous. All right, so going on to, we can go to correspondence, and we can go back to old business afterwards. Correspondence, we have minutes from the May 2nd, 2017. The Heart Safe update year one, invitation to the May 25th, 2017 Memorial Day services. That is at 6:30, I think it is. We have documentation on the town planner job description. We have documentation for fiscal 2016 audit and reports. And then we have some nominations for volunteers of the month. They are Kathy Prunier, Shay Condon, and Elisa Soap.
May I just make a comment?
Yep.
So on the Memorial Day services, as you'll see in the letter, they are looking for a member of the board to say a few words, and they would like to have that person RSVP to Dave. So if someone wants to take point on that, you can either get in touch with Dave or let me know, and I can get in touch with him.
I plan on being there anyway. I don't know if anybody else will.
I plan on being there.
And I'll touch bases with Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I plan on going, I have it on my calendar.
Okay.
Ed, if you wanna talk, or I can talk, it doesn't matter to me. At the service.
Okay.
Anybody have any other comments on correspondence? We can go to finance director time.
Sure. I have a couple of things. Get my list. So I'm gonna follow up on the dog park discussion from last meeting. I had a discussion with a member of the dog park community who said they don't need volunteers, they don't need anything. The people that use the dog park clean up after themselves, they bring their own bags, they don't need to change the surface, they are very happy down there. Their suggestion was if they could get running water, and I said that while we're putting in a well, we could probably see about putting a spigot down there for the dog park. But otherwise, they said it's not their dogs running loose. They sort of all have a plan down there. There are people in the morning that take care of the morning. If anyone leaves a mess behind, there are people that go every night that take care of that. So they were appreciative, but they said they don't need anything. They are a self-sustaining group. I did have someone come forward to volunteer, which is Andrew Cox. He did say if we do need a volunteer, he does use the dog park and would be happy to facilitate between them and us. But like I said, they wanted us to know that they are very happy with the space down there, and they provide all of their own materials at this point.
So my only question about that would be, if that's the case, then how do we, if people are complaining about, I think there was some concern at the previous meeting that there are complaints being filed?
But I think the complaints are the Pines in general,
Okay.
not the dog park, which I was aware of. I really didn't think it was the dog park users, it's just people are down there with dogs loose.
Okay.
So I think I have spoken to the police and the road commissioner. I think we need to increase the signage down there.
Do we need
Another
to take
issue-
a vote on that, or is that just gonna happen?
We would just do that, because there should be signs anyways about leash law, and, we also need to address, just at the Pines specifically, apparently before the Pines was renovated a few years ago, there were signs that, kids couldn't be unattended after dark, or something to that effect. Those signs have been removed, but police are still down there enforcing it if they see groups of kids down there at night. So I have a meeting with the police chief and the road commissioner to figure out, you know, if that's a problem, if we need to really readdress that situation. But the police did sort of usher a group of kids out of there, and then a mother complained that there's no signs, why can't the kids be down there? So that may come back to this board at a future meeting as to how you want to proceed with that, but I need to see what type of issue that is. Something to keep in mind for this board, Dan was the Board of Selectmen representative on the Community Preservation Committee, so when appointments come up, someone from this board will need to fill in that slot.
So we have to have representation from the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
When's the next meeting for that?
I don't think there's any scheduled anytime soon, but he was the selectman representative on there. And then while we are talking about appointments, so back on January 9th, we discussed annual appointments and the appointment policy that you all put in place last year, that there was some confusion as to when it would actually begin because you put a 6-year term in there. It was never rectified, so that's still up in the air. At the time, Selectman Watson, you wanted to see everybody reapply for their positions for boards and committees, but that wasn't finalized. And we're now getting close to reappointment time, and I just need to know how you'd like to proceed, so I know how to either get in touch with people if you're looking for letters of interest. I just want to know how the board feels on that.
Ed, do you have anything on that?
I think that they should be asked if they want to continue. I don't think it should be automatic. and which has been done in the past, that if they don't indicate they want to get off the boards, they're automatically reappointed. I think that they should indicate that they want to continue.
Do they resign mostly when they don't want to continue, or do they just disappear and they're automatically reappointed? I don't know what the history is on that.
Well, so my first year here, I sent out emails to everybody asking them if they wish to be reappointed.
Mhm.
I heard from maybe a third of the people. And then the last few years, we've just, if no one came forward and said they didn't want to be on, we just reappointed based on when they were expiring. So I have actually, a few people have reached out to say they want to stay on, but
Mhm.
again, we're sort of in that 6th year, and I don't know if your new policy is taking effect, because that was sort of left up in the air as well. So I just don't know how to treat that.
The 6th year is in reference to a limit?
Yes, so back in September of last year, and then amended in October of last year, this board put in a policy for appointments to boards and committees. But the limit was 1-year appointments, no more than 6 consecutive terms, 3-year appointments, no more than 2 consecutive terms. Any member who has completed his or her allotted term of service may be reappointed after a 1-year interval or reappointed in the absence of another applicant. And then it talks about the chair. A member may hold the position of chair for no longer than 2 consecutive years, except for the time served filling the unexpired term. But there's been some question on if this takes effect as of last July, when we sort of backdated it, it was approved retro to July 1st, or if someone's in their 6th year now, are they done? There was sort of that ambiguous language, so I didn't know how to
How
proceed,
many
and people were
does that
sort of
affect
confused.
if they're in their 6th year?
There's quite a few, we have a lot of long time
When we originally
Appointed.
had that discussion,
people.
it was originally, it was framed around the chairs of the committees, not the members. And then
So the chairs
somehow
need
it
to
morphed
rotate,
into
yeah.
all the members, which I never thought that was right to begin with. And the original complaint was that you get a chair on there for 6, 7, 8 years, that then it drops off, people don't wanna join for whatever reason, they don't like what he's doing or whatever.
It defeats them, yeah.
Defeats the purpose. So I would like to, if we're gonna do it, I would like to go back to the chairs, vice chairs, and leave the board members alone, because, I mean, they probably would move up the line anyway. And what, a board member being on a board for 6 years, I don't think they're gonna do any, they're gonna harm anyone.
I think the other piece is, I'm not sure that we have, a ton of applicants for all the appointments. So
No, we
to
don't.
make that restriction and then have to go back and reappoint people because you don't have additional applicants doesn't seem to be a great use of our time.
I would say, right now, we're lucky that almost all of our boards and committees are full. So we have very few vacancies right now. In some boards, there would be a significant number of people that would apply for these 6 years, because we do have some that, like I said, have long-time members on there.
Even
So-
if the chair is on there, and this applies to the chair could roll back into a seat and let someone come up, and they don't have to leave.
Mhm.
Right,
That's what I'm after.
right.
Let the chair just go back into a seat.
Kinda
I
like
mean,
this.
Kinda like this, right. I mean,
I'm
know,
fine
something
with
like,
that. I
you
think that that's appropriate.
you have a new chairman here, and this chairman might have new ideas, he might bring some new ideas to the board where I didn't, and
Might
there's
fall on
nothing
my
wrong with
face,
that.
who knows?
So,
Okay.
what I'm saying, that
So do you
should,
wanna make a motion to amend that,
it never was voted on. It
Well,
kept
I would say,
getting-
no, it was voted on. So it was voted on twice, but then you guys have discussed it since and haven't voted on that. But I would say you shouldn't make a motion now because it's under finance director's time. If there's something you want to amend, I can add it to your next agenda. I just want to get a sense of what's going to happen so that I can tell people, now that we're getting close to June, it's appointment
Yeah,
time.
let's put it on the next agenda.
Okay, but you're sort of feeling that you want to do away, you don't want to have the membership
Yeah,
restricted.
I don't think
I
the
don't.
membership
Is that-
is,
That whole point is rendered moot by the one clause in there that says unless there's people knocking down the door to get in,
except that they lose their appointment initially, and then you have to wait and see if somebody applies. So then you kind of miss that time period of people
Just
having
make
to
it until
wait
they
to
roll
see
back.
whether somebody applies or not before they know if they're gonna remain on the committee.
Yes, because it says the selectmen shall make exceptions to these rules only under extraordinary circumstances. So I would agree with Lisa, you'd have to not reappoint them and then see if there's anyone else that comes up before you decide if they should be reappointed, because there's been a vacancy,
I know that
based on the current
I know
policy.
that I had talked to a few people that were that had come to me, they were on boards, and they, especially, I think a lot of them were the rec people, and a lot of them, they've been on there for 6 years or more, and they're like, we're done, you know what I mean, this, the way you guys are doing it, we can't be there anymore. I'm like, that wasn't really what I wanted to do.
Right.
I really wanna just leave the board members alone, and chairs and vice chairs, so they rotate, and we don't get stalemate, and that's what I was trying to.
Now, I would call that an extraordinary circumstance. The entire board is dissolved because they've all reached a 6-year limit.
Right, that would, right. Right, they're all been, a lot of those members have been on there for over 6 years.
So I would say that'd be an extraordinary circumstance, wouldn't you?
But then in that situation, do you choose to reappoint everybody, or choose to just reappoint some of them and then have some new, because we have had people want to be on the Recreation Committee, just that one in general, but there hasn't been any vacancies. So I think if you revise this, at least it takes out some of that, you know, because at this point, it's
Ambiguity.
whoever reads it and whoever's on the board at that point will decide whether or not it's an extraordinary circumstance or not.
Right.
I think you want to take some of that out if you're going to have a formal policy.
Yeah, let's put that on the next agenda item.
Okay, but as of right now, you're not leaning towards board and committee members, so I can reach out to all the people, even those that are at that 6th year, to see if they want to be reappointed.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would agree
Some
with
of some of the complaints that I had gotten in the past was, from the members of the general public, is that, how do they get rid of some of these long-standing people on these boards and committees? If it's an elected position, they can get rid of them at the ballot box. But they have no avenue to replace some of these people on these boards and committees that get entrenched and, think one particular way, and they're just frustrated on, how do we replace them? And they have to be replaced by the Board of Selectmen.
Correct,
I
you
think
would
that's-
choose not
That's
to
one of the ways
reappoint.
that got started, was some of these people that have been on some of these boards and committees forever, how do you get rid of them? How do you replace them?
I think you just don't reappoint them.
Right, you would choose just not to
So
reappoint
if their
if
term
there's.
is up, they could be reappointed or not reappointed.
Correct. Right, and I think last year, I think 2 years ago, you sort of took boards as a whole. I think last year you went down and did everyone individually, so you could certainly do that when you're doing the reappointments. You could do every single person and have a discussion on everyone if you wanted.
But I guess at the end of the day, if some people in the general public aren't happy, they have the opportunity to volunteer for some of these boards and committees, don't they?
Yes, they do,
So the power is within their own hands
yes,
to say, I want to be on this committee or that committee, or this board or that board.
yes. And I haven't had many requests for boards that are full. Like I said, I have a handful. Recreation seems to be one that a lot of people want to participate in. But I don't think I have any pending a vacancy at this point. Maybe that would change if there were openings, I don't know.
But don't we have an elected position that needs to be filled?
There's several
It seemed to me
Maybe
the
it's
one
just
who
the
was it Water Department?
water and sewer, yep,
that
has a
we had
vacancy. The planning board has a vacancy. Those are both elected positions that have a vacancy currently. I did have Andrew Cox express some interest, and he might want to participate on the planning board, but I haven't, he was going to submit a letter of interest if he was interested, but I haven't heard back from him.
Too bad Bob is moving, we could give him a couple more jobs.
Come on.
So have we posted that we're accepting letters of interest for those positions?
For the two elected
Planning
ones that
bo-
have,
Yeah,
we have vacancies posted on our website
Okay.
for all the positions, that you can choose anyone that you want.
Okay.
The water and sewer, we've had vacancies in quite some time, and that's been, we keep cycling that through our homepage on our website. So you'd like me to add that to the May 30th agenda?
Yes.
And are you all good with me reaching out? So we're gonna reach out to everybody that's up to be reappointed and ask them if they wanna continue?
Yeah.
And now, what if we don't hear back from somebody?
Then it doesn't sound like they're interested anymore.
Well, maybe give them another chance to.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'll start now. We'll
Yeah,
start sending
give
out
'em a couple
emails
tries,
and,
'cause I miss emails and
okay.
phone calls too, so.
so we will get
Yeah,
that
give them a
going.
couple.
But where are we gonna be heading with the policy? Are we gonna be heading to chairs and vice chairs, or are we gonna be going for all board members and chairs and vice chairs?
Well, I guess that'll be part of the discussion, but I
Okay.
mean, I'm in favor of cycling through the chairs and vice chairs and, like you said, bringing people up, cycling back down and around, at least not have the same people in power for 6 or 7 years. But, I mean, that can be part of the discussion, for May 30th.
But I'm gonna reach out to everyone, even
Yeah.
those that meet that sort of
Yeah,
criteria,
yeah.
okay. I know you all received the email from Mike Davis. Mass DOT, in collaboration with the Community Trail Project, is holding a public hearing in this room on Thursday, this Thursday, May 18th at 7 o'clock, for the 25% design phase of the Community Trail Project. So just to let everyone know on that, it is on our website and it is on our message board out front. And that is all I have on my section for you.
All right, so we're waiting on Mr. Eckel for 7 o'clock.
Yes.
Anybody have anything for old business?
Could I ask one question?
Sure.
So you referenced there being an opening on CPA for a selectman. Is that a voting position, or is that just a sitting position?
No, it's a voting
We
position.
nominate that.
So the way the community preservation, and Mike, you may have to help me, there's a member of the finance board, a member of historical, a member of the housing authority, a member of conservation, board of selectmen, open space, I said finance. So each of the boards has one representative that makes up the and if you actually look at it on our website under that board, it should list who appoint or who recommended all those positions.
For a total number of
9.
nine voting members?
Yep.
Okay.
So, do we have to ask someone to volunteer on this board to do that, or do we appoint somebody, or both? or-
Both, I mean, you will, so when it comes time for appointments, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that I think that was the only one he was actively filling in as a board member, so that will be a
So we can
vacancy.
make that an agenda item for next week. Does anybody want to volunteer to do that?
I may, but I would like to kind of know more about it
Yep.
before how often does the CPA committee meet?
They meet mostly in sort of January, February.
Yeah, usually from around November through March or so, maybe we might have 5 meetings.
So, as a whole, it's not like a monthly meeting or,
Yeah, it's less frequent than this one.
okay, yeah, I'd probably be willing to do
Okay. Rob is still not here. So let's jump down to see if anyone has anything for old business. Mr. O'Neill, anything?
How, the town clerk's office, is that, has the hours, how are we back to normal?
She has been in, I think all last week has been back to her normal hours. I think. And she was gonna come in tonight, but she asked to postpone it to the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay, so the people are, like, being served, they get what they need, so that's
Yep.
a good thing. Honestly, I can't, I'm good.
Bill, anything?
No, I was gonna ask about the land sales, but we're having the executive session next Monday, and then the
Yes.
other sales, we haven't heard back from town council on the other Salem Street thing, so.
Correct.
So if we, maybe by next meeting, we can get some answers from town council on that.
Yeah, that should be, just working on a PNS with town council.
Lisa, anything?
So I have a question.
Mhm.
When do the items under correspondence generally get discussed?
So they're usually just mentioned, if you wanna discuss them, you can discuss them
Mhm.
during that time, or you could ask them to be a future agenda item, depending on what needs to be discussed.
Do you want to go back to something?
Yeah, the fiscal 2016 audit reports?
Yep.
So, I just wanted to talk about the management letter and the material areas that were referenced in there.
Mhm.
And just kind of hear what the plan of action is related to those, and if that's more appropriate to be on as an agenda item in the future, that's fine.
Yes, so it should be an agenda item, depending on what wants to be discussed. Once you have a chance to review them, I will have the auditors come out and sit here with you to discuss them more in depth.
Okay.
And some of them, as you'll read through them, they do deal with personnel matters, so it would be protected under executive session, depending on what you want to discuss.
So however it is appropriate to discuss that, that is something that I would like to see discussed.
Yep. And it will be, like I said, once you guys have a chance to review them, they'll come out and sit here with you guys.
Is that it? Ed, anything for old
No,
business?
also,
All right. I don't have anything for for old business, and we're still waiting for Rob.
You can do the, open violation, right?
Yeah.
No, not until 7:15.
Did we do selectmen's
No,
time?
we can start that. Do you have anything for selecting time?
Yeah, so on the selectmen's time, I'm hoping that we can have the recreation committee as an agenda item to just talk about kind of what's been going on. And I know that Mike Houghton's actually my neighbor, and he's asked me a few questions, so I think it would be helpful to have a conversation with the rec committee as part of one of our meetings.
Okay. Is that it?
Mhm.
Ed, anything under selecting time?
Yeah, I do. I like an agenda item, maybe for the next meeting, depending on how heavy it is. A discussion on work to be done at Johnson's Pond. I know we passed at the town meeting, an article to do some work up there. I'd just like a discussion on that and Johnson's Pond, as a whole. I think we need Mike, I don't know what other, I don't think we need the whole committee.
What does the next agenda look like right now? Is it pretty open?
Currently, and I have to follow up, we have Matt Castangoy coming in to give an update on the upcoming summer program. And then you have, at Ann's request, you've moved her to the
Yep.
next agenda. Those are the only two discussion items I have currently.
Can we, Mike, you mind coming in for 15 minutes on the next meeting to talk about Johnson's Pond?
It is a Tuesday, so just so you know, it's Tuesday the 30th.
Okay, yeah, we can throw that on there too.
Okay.
I apologize for bringing something else up. My other question regarding a future agenda item is a discussion about how town departments report back what's going on, because I noticed that the fire department provides a monthly report, but I didn't see that other departments provide reports. And if we could have an agenda item just to discuss the protocol around that, and potentially look at best practices and see whether that's something that would be worthwhile.
Ed, did you have anything else?
I don't.
Okay. So can we put 10 or 15 minutes on for that?
Yep.
For the monthly different department reporting. Bill, do you have anything?
No.
Nothing from either, Bill. Okay. Those two things are done. Well, we don't have anything else to do except wait for Rob and the other Community Preservation Committee discussion. So what should we do? Should we just wait, or?
So when do you want to add recreation? I know you didn't want them on this meeting because we were full. When do you want me to try and add them to a meeting?
What do we look for timeframe on that? How long do you think we need for that?
What are they looking to discuss?
I believe that Mike Houghton's asked to be on the agenda. I think it's discussing the status, and I think there's a question regarding, my recollection is regarding the fund management piece and what has happened that the rec committee's not responsible for that fund management piece. So I saw in the meeting that there was reference to a vote, but I don't know where that is, if there was a vote taking that the rec committee was no longer managing the finances for the for the Pines. So I'd like to hear more, because my understanding from informally talking to Mike is that there's not clarity as to when that transition happened.
Yeah, I'd have to look back. I know this board discussed it a few times. The board asked the Recreation Committee to come in, and they didn't come in, and then they said they weren't interested in continuing with that project. We had
Right.
several members reach out that didn't even want to be on the Recreation Committee
Right.
anymore.
In all fairness to you, maybe to try and bring you up to speed what went on is, we've asked the rec to come in, we've asked the rec people to come before us and discuss this Pines project. I asked if we can get a committee together or some kind of a funding mechanism down there for signage, or someone donating for a year to the park to generate money, et cetera, et cetera. They never came back, or didn't want to come back, for whatever the reason, we didn't get back with them. And then what happened is, if I remember, they were no longer wanted to be involved in the project as far as,
Yeah, they declined all.
Yeah.
they
that-
declined
that's
all.
Pretty much the inclination.
So then
of
I
that.
met with Mike Houghton a few weeks ago here at Town Hall. I had a meeting with him. We discussed, I would wanted to try and make it my thing this year to go out and do some work over there with him and try and get things going. And he asked in that meeting if we could get the financials, numbers on both accounts, and I think you took care of that and sent them off to him. We were gonna go over the plans. He didn't like the fact that the ball field got turned around the other way again. He was gonna get a committee of people together. We were all gonna get together and sit down and discuss the Pines as a whole. I think coming back before this board again, we're not gonna get the answers. I think we need to get someone together and a group of people that are willing to take this project on or move it forward. You know, I think we can have them come in. I don't see why not, but.
Well, I think there needs to be clarity, though, because and that's why I think it's important to have this resolved in an open meeting, is that according to Mike Houghton, that isn't how it happened. So I think it's important to just have a dialogue and be clear on, you know, what the expectations are now, how did we get here, and what are we gonna do moving forward?
So when would you like that?
Let's see if we can fit that into the next one. If that becomes, too packed, we'll have to move it to the following one. But
And
let's
then-
see if we can get them to the next, the 30th.
Yep, and then how much time do you wanna put for that?
I don't know that it'll take all that much time. Let's set aside 20 minutes, I guess.
Might take longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah, it might take longer than 20 minutes.
Everything takes longer.
Well,
I think you can limit the time to everybody 2 minutes and then-
Oh, no, I know that. It's just the discussion.
to your point, if they had come in the 2 or 3 times you would ask
would've
them to
been-
come in, we'd
Right.
be that much further
Away.
away.
Asked for a couple of years to.
There's actually email transactions saying that they were not involved in what happened, so they didn't wanna be involved, but whatever, we'll try it again, there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with trying it again, I
No.
mean, I don't have a problem trying it again, but I think we should leave this meeting hall in a public session with them people saying what they wanna do and how we wanna go about it, so that's the end of that.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
And not have, blaming people or whatever, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I think for me, I'm not looking for blame, I'm looking for clarity. So if there's a meeting where a vote was taken, I'm looking to be directed to that.
Yeah, and I have to look back. Like I said, I know there was several discussions. I don't remember what was voted on or what wasn't, but I can look back through the minutes and see.
And then, so I've known Mike for 15 years, and he's one of the most low-key, non-confrontational, bright people that I know. So when he asked to have a discussion, I feel that I want to try to be respectful of that and encourage the rest of the board to be willing to listen as well.
All right, so we'll try for the 30th, but I think I have recreation down for a little bit too, because they go through their whole program, so.
For the
I'll
same night?
Hmm?
For the same night?
Yeah, and they've been scheduled for a while, so I'll touch base with Matt and see if he's still planning to come in.
Okay.
But that was the day he was coming in to give you guys sort of the overview of the upcoming year. But I'll double check that and then I'll talk to you about.
And Denise, maybe if you have those records of the accounts, you maybe can give them over to, Lisa?
Yeah,
Showing their 2 accounts, the money in them and.
yeah, and I copied Mike on the email, so you should have the email with, as far as the money that was approved at town meeting.
Yep.
I think I don't even think $1,000 has been spent because it was only on advertising. We are under contract for the new well.
The Pines.
Oh, how money's currently being
Right.
spent?
Yes, we are under contract for the new well, at around 11,500. And then, the pump will be somewhere between 20 and 30,000, or it should be. The transformer and the electrical work that needs to be done through the light department is about 16,000-ish, but they had to put out a, request for proposals on that. And then we know the irrigation system and I don't remember what you call it, Bill, the backfilling and leveling and all that of the.
Grading and.
Yes,
seeding.
grading.
Grading, yeah.
So those are sort of the things that we were doing before we got into actually field discussions. Because, I'm not involved with field stuff. So those are sort of the things we had taken on because it's been sort of sitting dormant for a few months, but.
And as we enter the kind of spring, summer months, what's the plan for lawn mowing down there?
It's already started, it's already going.
The highway department.
The highway department is doing it, because
Yep.
I was looking back at another meeting where that was kind of an issue about whether, so that's been resolved and the mowing is happening by the highway
Yeah,
department.
we haven't had
Yep.
any complaints about things not getting mowed.
Nope, they started a few weeks ago, all the town property started mowing lawn again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that was just a blip rather than the rule.
Okay.
when that
Yeah, it was
happening.
just a few week
Yeah.
issue. Yep, so that is, but I can certainly send that out to the whole board, that breakdown. Like I said, not a lot's been spent in the last 18 months on that account.
Right. Well, I don't know if, Mr. Eckholt's coming in.
He put it on his calendar when I was with him, so.
Yeah. Can we jump to the open meeting? Or do we have to wait till 7:15?
You technically should wait till 7:15.
Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to discuss for 5 minutes?
To go back onto the, I know we can just kind of talk
Correspondence, yeah.
about a little bit, the Pines, on that, on those accounts, the, maintenance account that I call it, the 200,000, that keeps going down and down and down because we're doing different things.
Correct, there's no money going in, only money's
Exactly,
coming
no
out.
money going in.
Correct. And, I mean, maintenance right now is, there's not a lot being spent with maintenance, it's, so we pay to fertilize,
Right.
we do pay a company to come out and do those types of things. Any sort of extra work down there, but there's not a lot, cause things are
Well,
kind of
when you
maintaining
have to
themselves.
have the fields reclayed and
Right,
stuff.
they line them and
Fine,
clay
right.
them and,
And then when these new fields go on, you have to fertilize them and,
Yep.
so that, really, if they come in, we really should have that discussion, how we're gonna reimburse that money.
right, I mean, I think that's been the
We
discussion,
tried to have
because
it.
the account that's being used is called Town Development, it is not a dedicated Pines account. That's something I've brought up in the past, is it really should be a revolving type account where money comes in and then money is spent on the Pines itself when that development fund is gone. But in order to do that, you have to generate revenue somehow.
And
Right.
there's no revenue being, so when other entities come and use the fields, they're not.
They do pay a fee.
No, they do not.
No.
Didn't softball I thought softball paid a fee and so did,
Nobody pays a fee to use that facility.
we
Um,
talked about.
We've talked about it, but no one has paid, so currently, we pay everything, the utilities, so when there's night games and the lights are being used, we cover those costs, we cover the electricity, they have a freezer down there for softball with their snacks and stuff, I mean, we pay all those costs. I will say they're all sort of town-affiliated groups that are using that, it's either Pentucket or Youth Sports, so there's no outside groups using, because we don't have the space, it's being used 7 days a week by town-affiliated groups.
But they're not exclusive town. See, that's the difference.
I agree.
If it was exclusively Groveland kids or Groveland people using it, and even, I have to bring up the example of Washington Park, which is supported by GBL, there's, other than mowing the outfield
Yeah.
grass, there's no support whatsoever from the town. I think you guys can back me up on that. So I don't think it's quite fair that, the high school uses it. I know they call it Pentucket Youth Football, but these kids are coming from Georgetown, they're coming from Haverhill, they're coming from Merrimack, they're coming from West Newbury. They're not just Groveland kids, and I think the real discussion has to be made about some user fees, and, it's nice to have all these fields, and we have the best fields in the district. Anybody that comes to Washington Park can tell us, that you have the most beautiful fields around, and same goes for Pines. That's why they use it. They would go somewhere else if they had better facilities, but they don't. It's only fair that they should share the cost and the burden of keeping these fields beautiful like they are.
Right, the only problem with that is that, when you start instituting a fee to use the field, that gets placed on the parents who are already paying whatever the fee is to do the sport. Now, GBL has a snack shack and they have other fund drives and fundraising, they have the calendar, the cash calendar.
Yeah. Lots of
The
fundraising.
other sports have that, which is something that they probably should do.
But now, I'll give you a great example. When I was involved in Haverhill senior baseball, Haverhill had a policy that it was a $5 per child user fee. So the league would collect, if the fee was $100 to play, they'd charge $105. The they'd say, okay, we got 100 kids, it's $5 per kid, and that would hand a check over to
That's
the,
for the season? Or
That-
just for one,
That would be for the season.
yes, I don't
But
think
one
that's
group.
unreasonable.
No, I mean, we're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars here, but it was some kind of help to the city of Haverhill to take care of Swansea and take care of Riverside, so parks that, you know, they could use and play on. I didn't think it was unreasonable. It was $5. It wasn't a lot. I don't think we're gonna talk about charging, you know, people $100 extra for, you know, per user, but some nominal fee that we could, you know, pay for the fertilizer, because I know what that costs, I pay the bill. It's about $320 a month if you have the fertilizer and the grub X and all this stuff, right? And that's 5, 6 times a year. So, you know, it adds up.
Particularly if, a lot of the people, if it's part of the Pentucket group, many of those people are not Groveland residents. I think there's a rationale for that, because when you talk about fees, we're paying for it as a town. So if we're not using user fees, we're still gonna pay for it one way or the other. So
Right.
then it's only gonna be absorbed by Groveland. It's
Mhm.
not being absorbed by any of the other entities that might be using it that aren't from Groveland.
Which was my point with the summer program. I didn't see a problem with charging out-of-town residents more for the summer program than we charge the residents within the city. And I made the analogy of Wincoshik Beach. Love Wincoshik Beach. You don't have a Gloucester sticker on it, it's $25 to park. You don't want to go to the beach, you don't want to pay the $25, you don't have to go to this beach. It's a free society, you know, so, but something's gotta give eventually. I mean,
How much
it's
money
not
does the-
sustainable.
How much money does the Little League make off those signs?
Uh,
They make,
The first year,
I'm saying it now, what's out there now?
after the first year, we make money, because right now, and I've kind of argued against it, the sign cost us $250 to make. We only charge $150 for the sign per year. So the first year, we take a beating, right? It doesn't make sense, I know.
And you
I'm-
hope
I'm-
they sign up a
I'm-
second year.
We hope we sign them up for long-term, because, you know, it only starts paying at the second year and then on.
Right.
And I'm trying to, you know, change that policy where, hey, you want a new sign, that's great. You should pay for the sign.
Right.
We did that in Everett. We'll put a sign anywhere you want, you know, when I was involved in Everett Little League. You have to pay for the sign initially, right? And you can make it any way you want. These are the dimensions it has to be. And we'll put it up, and then to put it up, it costs you X amount a year.
The Raleigh Little League, I have had one down there too, a couple of years ago. I had to buy the sign, pay for it, and then put it up. It's $150 a year. So I bought the sign, paid for it, like you said, all that stuff, and it was up there for a couple of years.
Heck, yeah.
So that's nothing wrong with that. And what I'm saying over there, we could do the same thing over there, and you got two
Absolutely.
fields with a lot of fencing
It's
and
huge.
what happened, and then, let's just say there's a company, like I keep saying, Trinity or someone, they wanna sponsor that park for the year, and they give us X amount of dollars. We had the conversation with Chesterton, we had the conversation with the guy from the bank that was in here. They're willing to do that,
Naming rights.
naming rights. So, I mean, we just need to get the people, the committees, or someone together to take this ball on, and we tried and tried and tried, and it just, I don't know.
So my thought on that is that seems reasonable, but I don't think that should be the only source of revenue I don't think it's fair to the rec committee or for that to be the only source and for that to wholly be on them. I think the town needs to continue to explore creative ways that it's a collaborative effort, not just the effort of just one entity having to take that on. So I hear that you're doing that at Washington Park, and I think that's phenomenal, but if that park benefits everybody in Groveland, I do think the town has some piece that they should own of that, in terms of it being a collaboration, because we all as community members benefit from that. So I think it's great that you're able to do that with Washington Park, but I'm not sure that I would place a mandate on, for instance, the rec committee, that all of the revenue has to come from their efforts. I can understand part of the revenue coming from their efforts, but I wouldn't.
I don't think we'd make enough money, even if you charge minimal. It does cost a significant amount with all of the seeding and, I mean, not even counting the cutting the grass, because that's just in the highway department salaries. But just the maintenance of things that need to be done down there, I think you'd have to charge too much. So yes, I agree, either the town
It
has
has
to
to be-
have
someone
a
else has to
recreation budget to sustain that, or we incorporate it in the municipal lawns and grounds
Right.
budget. The utilities, things like that, I think we would still end up having to cover.
But I'm not sure about that. I would think one point person, where everybody knew, this is the people, this is the committee, this is the person that you need to talk to, as opposed to, well, if I'm football, where do I go? If I'm softball, where do I go? If I'm soccer, where do I go?
Oh, I can understand that, there being a central person that kind of manages that, I agree with that. But I just don't think that that group should have the whole responsibility for, so I think it's fine to have one person kind of managing that, but I don't think that one group should have the full responsibility for bringing all the revenue in that covers everything. I think we're talking about different things.
No, you're right, but I agree with you 100% what you're saying, and we need to, basically, I think kind of what Bill's saying, kind of what you're saying, is we need to have almost like a little management team, what I've been saying all along, and then they talk to the football and soccer and all these other people that use the facility, and they kind of run the facility, and they help raise money. These guys raise money, everyone's raising ways to find ways to raise money, and it's one big collaboration trying to make this whole thing run. But right now, what the problem is you have a little here, a little here, and a little here, and there's no one really down there that's taking control to run it. And I agree, I don't think the rec wants the responsibility of doing the whole thing, and I don't think they want to have to raise all the money, I don't think they do. I think there's gotta be a committee formed or something that actually is the Pines Management Committee or whatever, and then they feed off to these other people. And I think that's what we need to go, and it is, it's a big task, there's a lot involved. I mean, the rec does their thing, but then you have the boat ramp, and you have a water park down the
Dog
road,
park,
and
yeah.
all kinds of stuff. I mean,
Well-
that's a town-owned piece of property, and it's not like GBL has Washington Park, it's a smaller thing. This is gonna be a lot of different things owned and done by the town. So I think we need to somehow, we can have that conversation and see where it goes.
So maybe I'm under the misunderstanding. Besides the Pines, what does the rec committee do?
Nothing.
I don't know that their original charge was the Pines. I think it kind of morphed into that. They oversee softball. They oversee, I think, a basketball program. I think that's really what they started with.
It would seem like they would be the proper organization to take that on, but Bill, didn't you have a discussion with them, they weren't interested?
They weren't, not to take the whole project on. We
So I
can have the
think-
conversation when they come back again, but I
Yeah,
mean,
so I think the next step is, what are they willing to do?
Right.
You know,
that'll
let's
be
have a
cleared up next
discussion
week.
about brainstorming,
Right.
what are they willing to do, and then where's the deficits, and how do we come up with a strategy? Because at the end of the day, if they're not willing to do it, we still have to come up with a plan.
That's why we've kind of carried on, and, you know, Bill's done the well and the pump, and
you need to.
she's been carrying on
we
with
Definitely can have the
the work.
conversation with them, it will definitely work, we can explain it a little bit better, but at the end of the day, I still think that there should be a committee or something that handles the
Right, but we still have to have
management end
people
of
to
it.
manage that. I mean, just to have the
like
committee.
a committee or
doesn't
something,
mean-
and then let the rec people talk about it, let them do their thing. And
Right, but nobody wants to do that, that's the problem.
Well, we'll
Because
have the conversation when they come in
Right.
and explain
I mean, I
it.
think from my first week here, I've been saying, I think we need a recreation person. I think we need a paid recreation employee to
oversee all
oversee
this stuff.
all of it. You know, what parks need to be cut, when, if there's scheduling. I really think there needs to be a full sort of recreation department that eventually gets in place.
Speaking of Pines real quick, basketball, the basketball courts. Are we gonna get some new baskets and just,
Yes,
we are?
yes.
When?
Well, I have a brochure, but you put a girl in charge of figuring out what outdoor net size and all those things. You know how many options there are with nets for a basketball court?
No, I thought there was
I
one.
thought it was standard.
No, there's different sizes, there's different materials, there's different rims. I have a whole book of different parts of that court.
Anything
So-
that makes it look pretty, the kids
Yeah,
can
but
play.
I don't know, I have a book
tell
that
me?
I'm working on, but there are so many different components of an outdoor net that I
Okay.
wasn't aware
Can I
of.
make a suggestion on that?
I'll help you.
Reach out to one of the basketball entities and just ask them to advise you on it?
Yeah, I got the number of the company, because I really, when I look on, there's just so many options.
I'll
Call
come
the
by
athletic
tomorrow.
director at the high school.
I'm sorry,
Call the athletic director at the high school.
do they have outdoor courts there, though?
No.
Does it matter?
They used to have all chain nets there when I was little.
Yeah.
I think
Those
they use
rusted.
outdoor ones in the summertime, they still
Oh, I
mow.
don't know.
Okay.
And I don't know if
Yeah.
Mr. Thornton would be able to help you there.
It's,
I really don't.
O'Brien and Sons, and they're in like,
Yeah, that's who we did Washington, that's who did the playground at Washington
if you
Park.
call up and ask, they have a person there, you can call and say, what, but you probably don't know what the basketball court thing is, so,
I'll go by and help
yeah.
you,
All right,
you know.
you have a comment, go ahead.
Yeah, I do block up on 9 Fairview Circle. This argument has been going on for decades, I mean, literally decades. I started with the Recreation Committee 30, 40 years ago, and they were the ones that originally started Groveland Day. Used to do scavenger hunts, they had all kinds of activities, they were really an activities kind of committee. But the town has grown, and I think that the way that the Pines Recreation has taken off, you get so many activities, so many sports, so many directions that you're going in. This is the responsibility of a Parks and Recreation Commission. If you look at Massachusetts general law, there's a whole chapter in there that the town has never adopted for a Parks and Recreation Commission. Georgetown has one, West Newbury has one. They are elected and you pin the rows on that commission. In lieu of a Parks and Recreation Commission, who has the responsibility for the parks, the care, custody, and control of the parks in this town? And the recreation program, it's you.
Selectmen.
Because you didn't, the town hasn't adopted that law and hasn't established this commission, which would be given full responsibility for doing all the things that you're trying to manage right now. And I think you're just overwhelmed by the magnitude of it and just all the different parts to it. And that's why you have a dedicated commission, a dedicated group of people who are tasked to do that. And they are elected to it. That's what a commission is.
In
I
Geor-
really suggest you take a look at that.
In Georgetown, as I said in one of our previous meetings, in Georgetown, they have raised, over $3 million in grants to do their parks. And they're actually doing a skateboard park right now, because they asked me to bid on it, so that, you're exactly right. They did over the one behind the Richdale store, that same committee did that. They've got a grant for all their playground equipment and everything, and they're a very involved, committee there over there. And that's what I'm trying to say, I definitely think we need to go that route, we need to,
Because you got too many rice bowls, too many fiefdoms here. You need to have a commission that oversees the whole program.
Right.
And can adjudicate the food fights and the use of the facilities.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that scheduling would be
Care,
it.
custody, and control.
Right.
They have to have control. I just think that's
Yeah.
all right. I think the town is big enough now, and the programs are extensive enough now that we're at that point. I think you have to do something.
Yeah, we should look
like
into,
that.
I mean, I know that's a funded position, but,
Oh.
does that have to be something that, has to go to town meeting to do?
If you're creating a new elected body,
Well,
Can it be an appointed body?
you can.
yeah,
Instead of
You'd have to
going-
still
make it a-
decide,
Make it an appointed board?
yeah, you'd still have to come up with a charge that you want them to oversee.
right, you have to find someone that's willing to do it, which is
I'm
probably
sure
gonna be
once
the
you
more-
make it, you build it, they're gonna come.
I agree.
yeah.
Bob, would that take the place of the Recreation Committee?
I believe it would.
Okay.
I really do. I
Thank
mean, you could still have an activities component to it, but I think by default, because nobody has taken on basketball and girls softball, they have by default, I mean, they're the group that manage those activities, those sports. But other groups like Groveland Baseball have come along and they have, well, Groveland Baseball's been along for a long, long time.
It'd be a
I won't
a
go
lot
back.
longer, too.
I won't go back. I first started playing Little League behind Groveland High School, and, it's before Washington Park. I mean, that whole, I mean, obviously, a lot of people like Little League, and same now is with soccer and lacrosse and football, and all of these groups have constituents. I mean, they have people who have a real passion for those sports, and the kids are in those sports, and they get active. Okay?
So that's another item we're
Thank you.
gonna
Thank you.
look into.
So, with respect to that, do we as a board, like, I'm willing to do the research and bring it back to the board, if that's helpful.
On the position, or like an elected or appointed position? for-
No, on what is in place in Georgetown, for us to
That'd
at
be
least
great if
look
you wanna
at.
do that,
Yeah,
yeah.
you just give them a call, they have Dave Showers is the, he was the chairman, I'll get you his phone number, and, 352.
It's probably on their website.
Yeah, and you can call over there, they're very, very helpful.
Yeah, they can give, and help provide an outline, that would
West
be.
And
Virginia
I'll
does
just
the same thing, but.
Forward the information to Denise for,
Yep, and I can add it on to,
Yeah, they had,
the
I'm
next
sure
meeting.
there's two girls that actually run it now, and they're awesome, really.
All right,
I agree with the fine gentleman, I think we're long overdue.
yes.
I agree.
Sorry we're late, Mike. Discussion, potential open meeting law violation for the Community Preservation Committee. You go to the podium? So, I wanted to talk about a meeting that took place on April 19th, regarding, Community Preservation Committee, and whether or not that was actually posted, what took place during that meeting, who was at the meeting, what outcome was at that meeting, because I don't believe that that meeting was posted in accordance with open meeting law, and I didn't see an invite to that to that meeting. So could you give us a little background on when that meeting occurred, what happened? I think the only thing that I knew that was going on that day, that there was, office hours for Representative Mira happening that day that I wasn't able to attend, but, can you give us a little background on April 19th?
Sure. So Mike Dempsey, representing Community Preservation tonight. So on, April 19th, I came into the building, I was doing some planning on doing some conservation work, and, someone, came out in the hall and told me that, Lenny Mira was in here and that Blue Star was coming in, and, they wanted to talk about, Groveland Square. So I came in and there were a group of, citizens here, and, Bruce Tarr was sitting there. No, he hadn't come in yet, that's right. And Lenny Mira was in here.
So, Groveland Square in relations to community preservation, or just,
No,
just the conversation?
Just in general.
Okay.
Just as far as I knew, like I say, I didn't know about this meeting, I didn't know anything about the meeting, going on that day.
Okay,
So I'm just assuming that, you know, we're gonna be talking with, Representative Mira and Senator Tarr about, you know, Groveland Square, and picking up kind of what had been left off when they came to
Mhm.
your meeting.
yep,
So we sat there for a little while, and then, Senator Tarr came in and he started talking about, the square. He talked about, state funding, mostly talked about state funding, what could he do? Could he still proceed to help us come up with some money that the town might be able to acquire the property, or somehow work on, you know, proceeding along the lines that had been discussed with you.
Mhm.
Let's see,
so you came in,
Yes.
you were talking to Mr. Mayor, and then Senator Tarr came in,
yes,
and you three were just kind of talking about things that might be able to happen based on the conversation we had
yeah,
maybe a year ago with the two of them when they came in to talk to us about
right.
downtown and
But
stuff.
it
Okay.
wasn't really me, I mean. it
Right,
was
no,
a
I know,
group of-
right, and they had office hours, right, and you came in to talk,
Right.
that's fine, okay.
Right, and so we talked about that, and then, Lenny Mira was talking to someone else, he came over and joined us, we talked about it a little bit more. Then, Selectman McDonald at the time
Mhm.
came in, and
Who's a member of the CPC, or was, right, yeah.
And he sat down, listened to the end of the conversation, and then he brought up with, Representative Mira about the Center Street Home Rule petition that we had submitted, or hopefully we had submitted to them. So then Senator Tarr asked for documentation on that. I went and talked to Denise if she could print out the email that we had received from town council. She printed that out, I gave it to Senator Carr, and then the meeting was over.
So, who from the CPC was in this room together talking about downtown?
Well, in that room were myself, Bob Guptill, Claire Walls,
Mhm.
Kathy Brunier, and that was it. Well, no, I'm saying.
From the CPC, right.
CPC.
Yeah, no, he's right.
And then, then at the end, Dan McDonald came in.
I was actually present at that meeting as well, because Scott Bacuzzo, who works for SORB, and I know him through my work,
Mhm.
called me and asked me, he said some community members were gathering. He knew that I was running for Board of Selectmen, would I be willing to potentially attend this meeting? My understanding, though, is that it was an informal, there was no deliberation, and there was no intention for there to be deliberation. It was what I understood to be a brainstorming session that was prompted by the May 31st meeting, in which Bruce Tarby came before the Board of Selectmen to discuss the property. I think it's 295 Main Street, I'm not sure of the address, but
But there was no deliberation to use CPC funds for any type of assessment of the gas station, post office downtown, any kind of architectural designs, any kind of evaluation of projects that may happen in the future, anything to do with CPC money at all?
no.
See, the problem that I'm just trying to get to is, open meeting law, right? I know open meeting law
Right.
for the basis. I mean, I can't go into a room with these three guys and talk about town business
Right.
unless it's posted 48 hours ahead of time. Regardless of the intention, regardless of where we are, we have to be careful not to presume that we're doing backdoor dealing. So if you have a majority of your CPC group talking about a project in town, I just want to make sure that we didn't violate anything for open meeting law. I'm not accusing anybody, I just want to make sure that nothing happened that we're not going to be held responsible for.
So I can speak to that again, because there was no reference to the use of CPA funds. The discussion was, where could we solicit outside funding? So there was a discussion of the Greenway. Mr. Guptill, you know,
Trust for public land.
so you were very articulate in identifying other sources of funding that we could potentially explore if we wanted to look at that property. And I think Senator Tarr also referenced that if there was access to the water, there may be some fishing and game funds. My recollection is there was no focus on CPC or CPA funds. The focus was on outside entities that might provide a source of funding. And again, prompted by the meeting that was held on May 31st.
I remember that one.
In which the suggestion was that the town didn't have the money, and if, I don't think there was a formal vote to form a committee, but it sounded from that meeting like there was a suggestion that if there was a committee that wanted to explore that the board was not in a position to provide any funding for that.
Right. So the reason I ask is because there's conflicting statements as to what was transpired that day. Some say that there was funds that kind of appointed and addressed to be used, CPC funds, some say not. I have no idea, I wasn't there, I wasn't invited to be there. So that's the basis of the meeting, to find out if there was, if there isn't. Lisa says there wasn't, you say there wasn't.
So let me preface it. I got there a few minutes after the meeting started. As long as I was at the meeting, there was no reference to that. I can't speak to the 5 or 10 minutes before I got there,
Mhm.
but, because that wouldn't be fair, but as long as I was there, I didn't recall anything about CPC or CPA funds.
Ed?
Yeah, I was asked to schedule the room for Senator Tarr to meet with 2 or 3 residents, and I assumed he was having like office hours. And then we found out that there was a few people in there. But reading from the minutes of the Selectmen meeting on May 31st, and I'll just paraphrase some of this. Selectman Wood said it comes down to Comes down to may cover the cost of buying the land, but we still have to come up with the rest of it, and that's still taxpayers' money, any way you look at it. He said to see what the interest level is, see how much money we can get and go from there. And then following down, Selectman Watson said the first step would be to get an appraisal on the property. Mr. Browski said we would have to find the money to do that since the last appraisal cost was $2,000. Bob Guptill said an appraisal was done in 2008. He said there's an administrative account, Community Preservation Act for purposes like this. The chair told him to look into it and get back to us with the cost. And then further down, if the town wants to pursue looking at this project, it would make sense to have a group look at the financial options to see if it would be feasible. And Chairman Dunn said that the starting point is to see what it was worth. And it sounds to me like when they met with Senator Tarr, that's what they were doing, is to, following the Selectmen's recommendations or advice to, what is available for funding and to get back to us. So that, just maybe unfortunate that people just come wandering into the room and it became maybe a quorum, but I think that's what they were doing, is following the Selectmen's advice and to see what money is available and get back to it.
I'm not arguing the point of the charter to look for information. I'm arguing the point that if you're involved in a meeting and you're aware that a quorum is taking place on a non-posted meeting, you should disregard the continued conversation and post the meeting that you're gonna have a discussion of a quorum of a committee.
So respectfully, and I can show you this in the open meeting law, it says unless there's a deliberation of a public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction. I don't think it meets that definition. So, we could certainly get guidance on that, but it talks about intentional violation, an act or omission by a public body or a member thereof, and knowing violation of the open meeting law. So if there are members.
Again, I wasn't there, so I'm going off of what's been relayed to me from both sides. So this is more of fact-finding than an accusation. I don't mean to accuse you of anything, Mike. It's just more of trying to figure out what had happened and what we're upheld for.
Right, so I guess what I'm saying is, while I was at the meeting, former Selectman McDonald was not present. About halfway through the meeting, he was coming in, he had some papers in his hand, and he just sat down and started talking. So I don't think that there was an intent to have a quorum of the, if that happened through sort of serendipity. But I think you'd have to, in order for there to kind of be more of a violation, you have to show that there was an intent, that the CPA or the CPC group was intending to have a quorum. And I respect and understand where you're coming from. I just don't think that was kind of the
What
intent
was the
of that group.
purpose of having Senator Tarr and Lenny Mira here?
They were having office hours.
So they had scheduled office hours here
Lenny
already?
Mira had a scheduled, he comes in every few months and
So
holds
then what was
office
the
hours.
purpose of having Senator Tarr come?
It was my understanding that Senator Tarr was gonna meet with a couple of two or three town residents. So basically, I looked at it, he was having office hours, and when I spoke to the finance director and scheduled the room, she mentioned that Lenny Mira had scheduled a room at the same time and didn't know whether it was related. But, and then when I spoke with Lenny Mira, he didn't know anything about Senator Tarr being here. He said that usually they collaborate on a meeting, and he didn't know anything about it. And Bill was with me when we were sitting out in the hallway out here, we talked about it. But I just don't think it's up to us to tell our state senator how to run his office hours. And if town residents want to come in and speak to their state senator or state representative, I don't think it's for us to question how they conduct their meetings and who shows up. We have no control over who shows up at his office hours.
And I agree with you 100%, what you just said, if they have an office hours and they're gonna have people come, residents come talk, I agree 100% what you just said. I didn't know, other than like, we did have a conversation out in the hallway, when Ed was sitting there, they were talking about people coming by or whatever, but no one had told me they were gonna have a meeting or anything. I didn't even know that they were gonna have this meeting in that room or whatever, but, what Ed just read for the minutes in the meeting, we we did discuss having further conversation about this down the road, I would like to have it as the selectmen involved in it, but maybe we needed to get to that point after they had this meeting, I guess. And then we would've had that conversation.
Bill, do you have anything?
I guess what I'm hearing is this is just a giant coincidence.
I think the quorum piece is, the meeting may not have been a coincidence, but I think the quorum piece is a coincidence.
Well, it sounds like Senator Tar showed up unannounced, would you say?
No, I think that I think that Mr. Bacuzzo asked to have Mr. Tar come. You can speak to that more if you.
Because I know I saw the sign for Senator Mayor outside.
Yes, so Representative Mira had hours, and then a few days before, Ed had come to me to see if the room was available, and that's when I said, oh, are they holding joint office hours? And then it happened to be a Council on Aging event, and Lenny Mira came in my office and said, oh, Ed said something about Senator Tar. I said, are you holding joint office hours? He goes, I don't know anything about that. But we scheduled them both for the same room, because we assumed, at least I assumed, they were holding joint office hours. So I'm not sure the Senator Tar piece. Lenny's office always calls and schedules that room. So it was just a few days before that I was told that Senator Tar was coming, and I just had them both scheduled here.
But it really doesn't matter if Senator Tar was here with Lenny Mara, that's not a violation, there's nothing wrong with that, if they're in there talking, whatever.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't matter, it's just, if it was a coincidence that 5 of the board members ended up in there together, might have been a coincidence, but at that point in time, maybe no conversation should have went on from there. I don't know, I wasn't there.
Well, I think, again, if there's not deliberations,
Yeah,
I don't know.
probably.
Yeah, that's the thing, I mean,
Yeah.
you're saying there wasn't, but I'm being told that there might have been, so I have to ask the questions, who was there, what was
So when
discussed,
you-
that kind of thing.
you were told that what type of deliberations were suggested happened? That
The
there was
use of CPC funds,
the use of CPC funds.
right. Betty?
Hi, Betty Gorski, 182 Washington Street. This group is just interested people in this community who care about what happens. At your direction, a year before, you told us to go out and investigate to see if there's any funding available. And that's what was going on for over a year. People were talking. If 5 CPA people happened into the room, it wasn't because they each were invited. Dan came in, he said he wanted to talk to Representative Mira about some things that were going on. And Mike was in another room, so happenstance, 5 of them were in this room. No voting taking place, no deliberation, just sharing of information. And at any given time, when I was a member of the 3-member board, we could all show up at the same meetings, school committee meetings, and we would listen, we wouldn't deliberate, we wouldn't vote, and no one ever made an issue of that. They thought it was good that we showed up and we were paying attention to the community. So there was no malice, looking out for the best interest of the community. And if there's state money out there that we can tap into, wonderful. Any questions?
I don't have questions, but I would respectfully suggest, to avoid something like this happening in the future, that the board may want to consider formally appointing a committee, and then there would be better communication with that committee about anything that's happening, and the board would be formally notified.
Well, I think that committee already exists. It's just,
I don't think it does.
well, I mean, that's what we asked them to do, right?
No.
Mike, I mean, the CPC, that's basically what we asked you guys to do.
I don't think it was the CPC you
No.
asked. It was a group of just residents that sort of showed up that night that, so yes, you could form a committee of that.
Former
Would
Board
it-
of Selectmen, Donnie Graney was here, Billy
Yeah.
Dodd was here, several people from community preservation.
But there is no formal committee, correct?
No.
Not like a Groveland Square committee, no.
Just, you know, as all things happen, rec committee, people get together, they care about the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just coincidence maybe that everyone kind of showed up just to discuss the item that might have been going on downtown with our higher representatives. That's fine, I
Right.
just want to make sure that we're all careful about open meeting laws and the way that we conduct things and the perception that it may have in town, because I'm very aware of who I'm sitting next to, who I'm talking to, sitting on this board, and I don't want to be perceived that the 3 of us are making some kind of deals against the other 2 members on some kind of topic, that is all. So I just ask you to be aware of, if that happens again, to say, you know what, we should probably schedule a meeting 48 hours ahead of time, like the law persists, and then we can have an open discussion and vote on whatever funds or resources or whatever project we're trying to work on behalf of ABC. That's all I'm asking.
There was no formal committee. That's why
Yes.
I said to Ed, is there any space down there? We're not a committee that can call up and say to Denise, can we have a room down here? Because who are we? You know, do we want to come down here and have lunch? We can't do that. So we thought we'll just entertain options. That's all. Possibilities to make the town nicer than it is.
Do you have enough people together you can form a committee?
I have no idea, Bill.
Should we try to form a committee with a specific charge?
Yeah, that's my suggestion, is that
Right.
maybe that be put on as an agenda item and to actually post on the website,
With a
if anyone's
specific charge
interested.
of coming up with the
Specific
funds
charge.
or
A plan or?
a plan? Doesn't
I mean, if
involve
they're
any
go- if they're-
taxpayer money.
If they're gonna be going out, and it sounds like they're all moving forward to work on this, so we don't have this problem.
We haven't done anything.
Well, I'm just saying, you guys, you got interested people involved or whatever.
Felt it was good to have the senator here.
Right, so it sounds like there's enough interest out there where people have enough interest in making this move. Maybe now's the time that we get a committee together, or we get a group of people together that now,
This is deja vu. We were all here when Elm Park was designed, the bridge was designed. And by the way, the gazebo needs to have the roof stained. So if somebody.
It needs to have one of the pillars fixed from the car that hit it too.
Excuse me?
Needs to have one of the pillars fixed from the
I
car that
know.
hit it too.
But the roof, we used to have that stained every year, so, but that started with an idea. There was people that lived in the square, a lot of these people, Bob Guptill, who is, you know, the consummate volunteer, has been with this Bridge and Square Committee. Greg Stark, I know he's.
Yeah, I talked to them the other day.
Mm.
And he's very knowledgeable
Yeah.
about this.
so what I'm saying is, do we wanna, us as a board, try and get a group of people,
Appoint us as a committee?
have you
Or
guys
some
come
of
in?
us, or all of
So-
us,
Talk
or
to Mike?
others?
Yeah,
So I would
maybe.
make a motion that we as a board take a vote on whether we want to form such a committee, and then if we do, we take the formal vote, and then we solicit volunteers to be part of that committee. And then as such, any meetings that take place are subject to the open meeting law and would have to be posted formally and have to be open to the public.
Sometimes an informal group can work better than a formal group.
So, I'm sorry, Lisa, you actually made a motion, correct?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Just for the record, I'm not opposed to idea sharing or brainstorming. Just wanna make sure everything is out in the open.
Total transparency.
That's all I'm
I
really.
think
So
that's
would-
what the
So
voters,
shall I add
taxpayers
to
deserve.
the next agenda again?
No, we don't.
Well, now you need to form a chart, you need to
Right,
figure out what
so
this
we need to
committee is
get
gonna
it
do,
on
how
the
many
website.
members.
I don't know how
No.
we're gonna get the word out, but.
But you, well, you need to figure out how many members you're gonna
How
look
many
for and
members?
what they're gonna
Right.
do
Who they're
before
gonna
you
be.
solicit.
I
What
would
the
ask
specific charge is
informally
gonna be. Just a
whether
few
the
details need to be
kind of
ironed out.
informal group, maybe Mr. Stark is willing to put together some language or about what that group might be tasked with and bring it to us, and then we could formalize it.
Well, I think he had information from, God, it might even been the Route 97 project and then the Elm Street and Bridge project from years ago on what.
Bridge and Square Committee, for
Yeah,
many years.
yeah, I think he said in the 90s and the early
Yeah,
2000s,
absolutely.
right, so he probably already has that kind of charter.
Many trips to Boston to make sure Elm
Right.
Park and Bridge.
There was money left over. They say there's money left over there.
There is.
When Senator Tar was in talking to us, he said there was some money left over.
He said that they would have
There's a
up to,
transportation bond
right,
package
right.
that he said cities and towns tap into, and why not
Oh, but you have to
Groveland,
apply for it.
if we could get that.
well, he had mentioned something of
mentioned to
up
us
to
saying that-
500.
That's
It was up to
600.
Yeah,
I
something
thought.
like that, that was still left behind or something like that, that,
Up to 500,000 or 600,000 that he could put towards it. The
Oh,
problem
But you
became,
still have to apply for it, because he kind of
Right.
went through that with us.
right, the
You
problem
have to be
becomes, it's not a $500,000 or $600,000 project, it's
390.
900, 1.3, whatever it is, and where does that other money come from?
But I think the point of that group was exploring, okay, so if you have access to the waterway, then you can maybe access fishing and game money.
Yep.
So then, and there was discussion of the greenway, so there was a lot of other entities that, and Senator Tar was also naming some of the entities that specifically target projects like this
Mhm.
to fund.
Maybe a handicapped fishing start talking about what you, like kids at Christmas, what you like. Those were all just ideas for him, but no voting, none of that.
So I think at this point in time, for us to get the ball rolling, we gotta get the people that are willing to do the work. So we just made the motion and got accepted, so now, however, we're gonna make it a 5-member, 3-member, whatever. Do we
Well, I think
solicit names first?
Well, I think we can
Right.
establish that as we, I think the first is to establish what the charter is.
Yes,
Right.
I would say.
So if there
what-
was an existing charter with the Bridge and Square Committee, maybe someone can resurrect that.
Yeah, maybe Greg has that. Well, you or Mike, you can get that from Greg, or maybe I can email Greg and ask him if he still has that.
Right.
Right, and then you'd have to decide how many members you want.
Right.
And then you
Mhm.
can solicit for the spaces, the vacancies.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Thank you. No? Thanks, Mike. I guess we are adjourning at,
Hold on, that guy, he's not here, so we really can't talk about that?
Mr. Echols?
Yes, but is that really even anything that we need to?
I don't know if that's something we can actually vote on,
It's not
or if
town
that's
owned
just
land.
No.
something he wants to come in and kinda get a blessing on, but I don't think
Yeah.
we can actually have a vote on it.
Well,
I understood that there were several follow-up things that he needed to do.
Right, he has
in order
been
for it
doing
to
that.
have approved.
yes.
And did he get all those permissions?
I think
No.
he's got most of it.
So he spoke to, he has a letter from the light department giving him the authority to use sort of their portion of the easement. He spoke to what is now the telephone, maybe?
Verizon.
Verizon.
And they told him good
But
luck.
he's, I
And
think
he
they're
was,
overhead.
yes, and he was, yes, they're mostly overhead now, and he'd reached out to National Grid and hadn't had much luck. So
Yeah,
he
'cause
was,
I think there was something with the gas line, but it wouldn't go through the back of his yard to the swamp or into School Street, it'd be back into the circle there.
yes, so he was planning to come back to see if this board, at the last meeting, I think Mike brought up the point that it's still a town easement and it should, that this board should give its approval. You know, he sort of knew that it was at his own risk, that if something should come up, it's still on an easement. Whoever he spoke to from, I think it was Verizon, told him that people are now building houses on the old Haverhill easements and haven't cared about it, so he was sort of ready to proceed with this board's blessing, as far as I know.
But how do we give him a blessing if it's not our land, other than just an easement? Do we have anything in the easement? Does the town actually have any utilities in that easement?
No, but it's still an easement with the town of Groveland, and it's sort of subsidiaries of the light department and then all the others. So,
So we can grant approval, but it's still based on his own risk?
yeah, I mean, you can't, it's, right, there's several entities that have rights to that easement. If someone comes down the line and, I mean, that's sort of at his own risk
Right.
that he wants to build. I mean, it's only, I think, 3 feet, right?
It's 3 feet.
Yeah,
And not all
Out
the
of
way.
20.
It's like a sliver, yeah, so,
right. Okay. That it?
So I guess my question, we're not taking a vote, correct?
On that today? No.
Okay.
No, he didn't come in today, so I'm assuming something came up, or we don't need to do anything with it. Anybody have anything else they wanna throw out there? No? Can I get a motion to adjourn at 7:57?
I'll
I
a
make-
motion.
I'm sorry.
Adjourn at 7:57.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?